Every now and again, it's going to flicker. I don't know what's going on. I haven't asked my husband to look into it yet, but sometimes when you move too quickly or like it just doesn't like something, it like does a weird glitch effect.
Yeah. See, look, it does this weird flicker thing. Oh, now I bet you it's not gonna do it. We'll go. I think it might be a color thing, and Juan is darker than Katie. There's a nice gradient, though. There needs to be a step between.
See,
like
you
we
see-
need.
Am I
No,
the
there.
cursed?
Yeah, I think.
Am I the
I think
cursed?
Will's right.
Is it
Oh,
me?
maybe it's auto balancing on your
Yes.
brightness.
Oh
That's,
my God.
That is literally and that's what Lindbergh's because
Lindbergh just said
yeah, it's a white
Katie's
balance
too
issue.
white,
It's
yeah.
you.
It's auto white
it's
balancing.
you. Juan does me no good. Sit down.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, you're fine. I'm fine. Katie is a monster. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Unresolved Textual Tension. It's me, your host, Maria, and with me today, obviously, the very beautiful and adorably sweatered Katie.
Yes, today we wear sweaters that are pink and we drink tea, except for Maria finished her tea and mine is cold because we had technical difficulties because apparently I'm too white to be on camera. If you weren't here before now to witness that event,
Let me
that's
tell
fine.
you, I can't think of a greater reason why you should join our Patreon, which is the thing we have. Did I get chocolate on my fucking sweater? When did this happen? That's so disappointing. But anyway, I can't think of a better reason for you to join our Patreon than to enjoy the absolute chaos of the first 20 minutes of this stream where we tried to figure out why the camera was glitching, and it turned out it was Katie. It was a great time. Katie's husband was on screen. Join our Patreon and be part of live streams where you get to hear fantastic content and other stuff that gets cut for videos. But that's not why we're here. Katie, why are we here today?
We are here to discuss a book. The book is the book's named. It's called. It is known as
the book known as
Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. Is
Yes.
it? Yes.
Yeah, I know it's Fawcett. I'm pretty sure it's Heather.
Yeah. Which is the sequel to the previous book we did, which was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies.
This is the start of what is going to be our sequels month, where we read a ton of sequels for stuff we read in previous months. This is the first one. We're also, just so you know, doing the sequel to Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall, and we're also doing the sequel to Children of Time. So if you are interested, read the books ahead of it so you can enjoy the videos, participate.
And apparently Children of Time is just really, the first 15 minutes really got people's attention, so they're like, we can't watch your video because we want to go read the book. And good, thank God there's that influence happening. But read it now, so that way you can follow along when
we're
publish it.
telling you, I don't know what order these books are going to go up, but this is the first sequel recording. And then at some point we're doing Absolution, which is the fourth book for the Southern Reachers, but I don't think it's even this month. But that's happening. But this is the month of sequels. Woohoo! Enjoy it. Katie, premise us.
Okay, so in Map of the Otherlands, we have once again our favorite crew of characters, which is Emily Wilde, our bookish
Academic.
No, that's not what I was going to say. Our bookish, socially awkward
ASD coded.
Yes, thank you. Character who is in love, maybe not in love. No, she's in love with her romantic interest. I can't handle his name. I can't. Wendell Bamblebee. Now you're picturing, right? You're probably picturing like some guy with big horned rimmed glasses and some type
old
of
stuffy academic.
Yeah, like with like a plaid like coat and stuff,
like
and
a
like
cardigan.
a pipe.
Like he wears a cardigan.
No. Think pretty boy, golden haired lad.
Like Astarion, but
yeah,
like if Astarion and Howl from Howl's Moving Castle merged together and created a flamboyant slutty man.
Yes, that's very into fashion. So anyway, so we've got Emily Wilde. We've got her romantic interest, Wendell Bambleby. And yet again, they are on another adventure. This time, though, to find a secret entrance into Wendell's kingdom that he has been ousted from.
Because it turns out Wendell is a fae.
Yes.
He's a high fae. We
Yes.
find out in the previous book.
Yeah, what spoilers. And
Not for this book, we already know.
and if you happen to stumble
And also,
across
she
this
mentions
first,
she mentions it in the first chapter.
yeah, she does.
Of the first
yeah,
book.
I know.
I don't think it's
Yeah, she's like, I'm pretty sure he's a fairy. But anyway, so they go off on yet again another adventure. This time with many extra characters in tow, which we have lots of things to say about, both good and bad. And during this adventure, Wendell, just as a small little summary, becomes afflicted.
Afflicted.
Yes. And he is unable to do a lot of stuff somewhat similarly how that happens in the first book, but we'll comment on that in a moment. And Emily must rescue him. And in order to rescue him, she must now solve the problem of finding this hidden entrance into his kingdom all by self, almost, basically, at this point.
Except for the moments where Wendell does show up and he's OP as fuck.
Yeah, and he just like can manipulate. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
We'll get
It's a whole thing. And along the way, we make some friends again. Now that is the general premise. Now, as a small notation, we are in mountains again. Just like in the first book. We have Emily Wilde going off on her own, doing things on her own that I feel like things could have gone better if she didn't go off on her own.
Once again.
Yes.
Yep.
We also have Wendell being incapacitated in some way and not being available during this adventuring time. So in which case we must all sit in awe of Emily's superb capabilities, and then when she gets cornered into a small area and gets stuck yet again, Maria just discovered a knickknack.
It's a little cat that goes fish. I'm so sorry, but I'm enchanted. This is a whimsical, enchanting book. Be enchanted. Look at his little fish. Come on, there we go. Look at this little guy. He's so cute. Anyway, continue, Katie.
Yes. Anyway, so in general, Maria and I both agree that there are a lot of things going on in this book. Perhaps too many things.
Perhaps too many. Is this a too many things problem?
This is a too many cooks in the kitchen, Maria.
Yeah. Too many spices in the soup.
Yes. And so as an overall critique, that's what I would say the thesis of it is. However,
we both enjoyed the shit out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of those where, once again, subjective and objective are at war a bit, because objectively, I think this book has a lot of problems. But subjectively, I just enjoyed the shit out of it. But even my subjective self is like, but why not more Bamblebee?
Well,
why no more Wendell? Because like this book is like Wendell Light, which is terrible for a
sequel. For a sequel,
but also the book where your characters finally consummate their affection for each other.
Which, don't get me wrong, the scene where that happens is very cute. However, it does seem there's a lot of another sub thesis, a lot of unearned moments.
Yep.
So this book is okay if you don't want to hear any more, and you just want to know a little bit. This book is totally worth it. Go read it. It's very fun. You'll enjoy it, I'm sure, especially if you read the first one and liked that one. Some people I've seen say online that they liked this book better than the first book because it did some things better.
Yeah. Some people disliked it more than the first book and found it a bit of a nothing burger. And a refrain from a couple of people was, could have been one book. Could have just smashed this. Could have been one book.
And I have some things that I feel like they just... Besides the too many things problem, ignoring that thing, I feel like a really big thing that could have just happened is let's just not go back into the mountains. We were in, you have to understand, in the first book, the environment had a heavy influence upon the plot and the characters and how they interacted with one another. And in this book, it happens again, but it's the same environment.
Yep.
And so it feels like...
it's not like we could have gone to a desert.
Or Greece, maybe.
To start off the bat,
I don't
the
know.
ocean.
I say Greece for a reason. But anyway, yeah. So wait.
Lindbergh has a comment that
that's
is
what
excellent.
I wanted to click.
So go ahead, click that. And why are we clicking a comment? Because this is the live stream, baby. It's one of our Patreon live streams for the book club. Join our Patreon. We got a Discord. We got a book club. We got Katie and Will do critique streams for our parasocial darlings.
Maria and her secondhand car salesman accent that tries to sell you on things. Anyway, Lindbergh said, I feel like the plot of the book stumbled in drunk at 3 a.m. and had lost its wallet. But these characters are so funny and sweet, and the world is so fascinating. I just want us to hang out together. Yes.
This is why we have Lindbergh on, because let me tell you, that was fucking perfect. It is, the characters are really why you're here, and then some of the cute stuff about the Fae. Like, there's certain things this writer, that Fawcett, does really well.
World building is, I actually think sometimes her ability to give you exposition that just comes off the tongue. It's beautiful, and it makes the world so rich. And I'm going to mention a couple of specifics, but keep it pretty limited, just so that way you have an idea. But I feel like sometimes she gets so caught up in the too many things thing that you don't even get to enjoy that part. Like, she starts out the beginning nice and slow and easy, as far as like there's a good balance of things happening, and then we just get thrown back into like the same kind of plot as the first book, but less of the it is
less of the romance.
Yes.
Which is, I think, for some of the people, like, one of the reasons why we're here is because we want to see our happy little blonde man slut, our fairy man slut, be charming and adorable and say things to Emily, and you're like, oh, Bamblebee. And that doesn't happen as much in this book. So yeah, overall, I would say we subjectively enjoyed some subjective. So I would say one of the things is in the first book, overall, subjectively loved, near 10 out of 10. I had a problem with the changeling scene. Like, it took me out. Objectively, I had problems with that book. This book, I have objective problems with, more so than the first.
Yeah.
But I have some subjective, like, subjective. Maria wanted more Bamblebee.
Yes.
I wanted the romance to be a little bit, especially because we have consummation. I
Yes.
woo me.
Yes.
Woo me.
And the thing is something can be said for a really elegant in and out, which we've discussed at length in many different ways, whether it's Will and I doing a close read of something, because we've done close reads of intimate scenes. And we've also done, just in general, lots of books where there are intimate scenes. And we've discussed how there is an undervalued aspect to just a quick, elegant fade to black scene.
Yep. This has that.
Yes, it does. But again, it's completely unearned, and there's just like, it's just in the middle, randomly in a place, and it feels like, oh, you just stuck that there because it happened that they could have privacy in this moment.
Yes.
Elegant in and out. Yes,
an elegant in and out.
So, anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and I think get started with the general
the plot.
Yeah. Go ahead. We're going to rely on Maria for this because I read this about 3 weeks ago, and while I have been re-listening to parts of it, I do not remember each and every point A to B, and that is another thing that we'll discuss, is how, like, there's some white space in this book that just feels like empty, like it's just noise.
Yeah, and it's why I can understand why some people call it, while this plot has too many things going on in it, because at first, when I was first reading it and I saw that some of our patrons had called it a bit of a nothing burger, I was like, but there's so much shit happening, and then I realized, oh, that's the nothing burger. There's so much stuff happening. Nothing is really like center stage in the focus. It detracts from itself in some ways. So I think that's what they meant. I don't know, but that's how I felt about it. Anyway, so summary of the last book, real quick. Our girl Emily, she goes to the wilderness of this world's Sweden, basically, to do research on their high fae, and then her coworker / sort of friend that she doesn't really understand, Wendell Bamblebee, shows up and is like, I'm here, and there's a dog crying on the other side of the
leave
door.
Him for, oh god, no,
so we'll leave him.
So he laid down against the door.
He's so cute. Wendell shows up. some flirting, some romance, some slice of life. And one of the things we said with the first book is the first half of the first book was a bit slice of lifey, cozy, academic-y. And then the second book turns into like a fairy tale, fae adventure story with like splish of romance.
So a tonal shift.
Yes, tonal shift there, but that book ends with Wendell asking our girl Emily to marry him, and he's like a king. He's not just a high fae; he's a king of a realm whose stepmother cast him out when he was 19. He's been spending the past like 10 years trying to get back into fairy. Claim his right. His stepmother has kind of ignored him, and they end the book kind of in a unsure space where she hasn't given him an answer. She's asked for time to answer his proposal, and like they have a kiss, but that's kind of it. This book picks up like I want to say 6 months after that. They're at Cambridge where they're both professors. Emily, since now working with Wendell, doing a presentation at this prestigious convention for dryadologists. And that's the other thing we should mention. This book is couched in the world of dryadology, the study, the academic field of studying and learning about the fae and fae creatures.
Yes, and Cambridge is a rich character in and of itself. And I thought that the way Fawcett wrote the exposition for this school was, as already stated, incredibly easygoing. It's a sweet listen. Like it feels like candy to the ear just listening to the world building of this, and it feels so dense and real and like a character itself. We get descriptions of the architecture a little bit and how it really feels settled into its own bones, like again, like almost like a old creature that in and of itself has like now created a spirit of Cambridge. And we get details like how Emily has has accomplished tenure. You do not accrue tenure.
She has tenure now.
Yes, she has tenure, which makes her feel like this place is safe now. It's because before she felt like she might be ousted at any moment. So it's a safe place. It's her home officially. And as we learned in the first book, she doesn't really have a home. She considers her work and her academics her home.
Library.
Yes, and so she has her own office and everything,
and it's a better office than she had before, but it is farther away from Wendell's, which he's a bit butthurt about.
Oh boy. And we get I just want to mention this one deal. I mentioned to Maria over breakfast too, but I just love like the casual world building of there's this one part where she explains how there's a urn full of salt and nobody really goes and puts the salt in their pockets, but the new intro to dryadology students that take their first class, once they listen on the lesson of whites and protection against them, they stuff their pockets full of the salt, so it's just like there. And then we also get this little detail about how there's a rug where everybody puts these coins under it for good luck of some sort because there's some type of thing for that. And over time, the rug has become this lumpy, very uncomfortable mess. But then at the same time, students also come back to pilfer coins for the pub. And it feels like a college.
Yeah.
And I would like to state right now, I wish we stayed at this college. I don't know why we go out into the mountains again. I would have really liked if the story was centered. Now, granted, you might say a lot of things might be taken away from that, like the adventure aspect and stuff like that, which is true. But I kind of just wish the plot revolved around Cambridge in this moment.
I will say, as a setting, it is so much richer than. So one of the things is the Alpine setting of this book is much weaker than the Swedish. It's not Sweden. It's called
Usland.
Usland. And the Usland setting was much richer. The people got much more page time. The village, the place itself had a bit of a personality. And it's because of the too many things problem. The place that they go to for their adventure in this book does not have that same sense of character, and the people are vestigial to the plot.
Yeah.
It's really off to the side. The place itself, it does feel like a bit of a rehash, and so it doesn't have that character to it, and Cambridge really does, and so it does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity to create such a cool location and place where your characters are also interacting with things we haven't seen them
Yeah.
do before. Like Wendell has his own apartments. I would have loved to spend more time in
Me
them.
too.
And like get descriptions of his closet and stuff like that. And we
And
only
and also we know that like right off the bat she's going to go meet him for breakfast at their favorite breakfast place, which is 15 minutes for a walk, which is out of the way, and she doesn't love it, but he really likes it because of it's the only place that makes the perfect poached eggs, and it's on the river, and they sit underneath this cherry tree or something like that.
He's such a persnickety, and I want to highlight. Give me the mouse. Give me
Yes,
the mouse.
here.
Thank you. Okay,
Voila.
stole it. I was by the mouse earlier. I want to highlight a comment. Raggedy Manatee says, I love details like that. It makes it feel so lived in. And the Cambridge feels lived in. Also, I want to highlight a reason why you should join our Patreon, because while we're talking about all this stuff, they're having a separate conversation, which often happens, and it is hysterical. And I'm just going to highlight, again, join our Patreon. So Lindbergh says, I melted into a gelatinous puddle when they decided to do the rumpy bumpy.
Ugh.
You may take your clothes off now, Emily, my darling. And Wendell was so sweet saying, this is why and how he loves her. It's a very cute scene. We'll describe it. And then Valerie goes, Linny, don't say rumpy pumpy.
Yeah, please.
And Lindbergh goes, I'm old, okay? In Swedish, my euphemism game is weak. And Valerie goes, the hip youths are calling it the elegant in and out. Damn it, foiled by the hip youths. Katie,
I didn't know I was a hip youth.
We've started something. It's becoming, we're entering the vernacular. Anyway, that was just really funny, and I thought these are the kinds of gems that are just happening off to the side. In our, like, we don't we can't highlight all the comments that are happening off to the side, but just know that kind of stuff is happening all the time. Anytime we're doing one of these live streams, there's us doing our thing. Hey, pa, and then on the side,
Maria selling cars.
Yeah, selling cars. And then on the side, there's just like a bunch of fun stuff happening. So join it. It's a good time.
You've now sold it 3 or 4 times.
It's because we do a really bad job in our other videos.
We have been lately. I don't do.
Yeah, so I really just am like, I'm trying to shill. I'm shilling. Anyway, continuing. So Cambridge is just this lush place, and we pick up, she's got tenure, she's got her new office, Bamblebee's not great about it. The timeline, and Katie, you speak to this as well, because for me, the initial, when this book started, I wasn't sure how far away we were from the events of the last book, and there was a point where I thought it was years ago, and this was picking up several years later, and I don't know if that was just me, if that's something a couple of other people had, but it took me a second to kind of place myself in the chronological place.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're listening, it tells you, when we were in New Zealand earlier this year, which is a very small prepositional phrase that happens, like, towards the introduction. So you know, like, when she's like describing the her office and the decor in it, because there's some pictures, there's some photography that Wendell did, which I don't know when that happened. I didn't even know he had a camera, but whatever, it's fine.
I know, you would have thought that it would have come up. I would have been fine if he drew it.
Yeah, but whatever, it's neither here nor there. The point is, though, is that we get some description like that, and so she mentions it, but it's funny, it's because the way some of the other pieces are mentioned, and also just the general tone, it does feel like it's supposed to have been a while. And there's even this one comment where Maria had mentioned it too during breakfast that we had together, but it was that she had or Wendell had a portrait for Shadow, best character in the whole book, the dog.
No argument.
Yeah, which I have a judgment on in a moment. But anyway, Wendell had a portrait of Shadow commissioned for her 28th birthday, but she's currently how old?
32.
So, like, it's like she's referencing something that happened way in the past, but that's before we entered the picture.
And it also feels like something that should have happened after they get to the point where he's like, I love you. Like, it's one of those moments where I was like, you didn't realize this motherfucker wasn't, like, who commissions a beautiful painting of your dog? Like,
that doesn't love you.
That doesn't, like, and I think it's speaking to the ASD and the like, bad at picking up social cues and like that kind of stuff, but it just like I thought that sounded like something that he would have done post the end of the last book, and so I was like, oh, that's a nice thing for him to have done, now that he knows Shadow's a Grimm and this
me
whole
too.
thing.
So
it just confused me, and then I was like, oh no, that happened years before the first book even happened. He did this, which is fine. I don't mind.
It's not a big deal, but it's just something that it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But yes, and we're also told pretty quickly in this story that Shadow is getting old.
Out of nowhere. The Usland happened like 8 months ago, and now Shadow's the oldest boy that has ever olded. He's slowing down. She has to be careful about taking him on strenuous hikes. He's got one last adventure in him.
I don't like any of that for a lot of reasons. Number one, the dog should never die. I'm sorry. But second of all, he's a fairy. Why is he getting old like this? I know maybe fairies, like, they age, but like, he should not be part of that equation.
One mortal year should not be enough to take him from fucking around and fine to where he is now.
No.
Like, one mortal year, it should be maybe 10 mortal years?
No, much longer than he's a Grimm. He's like almost even like he's like a force of nature. And so I really just didn't want that to be part of any equation, because I don't want, if I'm going to worry about characters, I don't want to worry about the dog. Yeah. I don't want to worry about the dog.
Especially when you've made the dog adorable and sweet and just the cutest boy that ever cuted.
And like the secret weapon.
And he's also just so helpful and nice, and I just love him. And there's a point Lindbergh references, I'm not going to put it up because it's a spoiler for as we're going through the plot, but there's this point where Shadow does something he's ashamed of, and him's the saddest, most ashamed boy, and you're just like, Shadow, my boy, why did this happen to you?
In this cozy novel, there was some shade for Shadow that I just felt like he shouldn't have had. But anyway, so we're given the premise that Emily has cottoned on to something. She has this, I was going to say decapitated, that's not the right verb. She has this amputated leg of
dried foot.
A dried foot. Whatever, hoof, if you will, of a fawn, and it is in her backpack, and my dogs are barking. Sorry.
We're gonna let the dogs bark.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Once again. Okay, let's try. So anyway, she has this. You son of a gun.
I know.
We might have to open the door so that way they come sit in with us. Go open the door for me. I will wait a moment. Sorry. Dogs.
Stinky boys.
Just have them come in and then close the door, because then they'll just stay in here and go to sleep.
Sasha.
Oh my God, you're so dumb.
Go to mom.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Okay, go sit on the rug.
Heavy breathing.
Look at this dog, wiggly voice, and Sasha. Come here, Sasha. Hey. See, this is the problem when you have a young wiggly dog. He just completely pushes the older distinguished dog out of the way. But they're really cute. We like them.
Wait, who's Noodle?
I have no idea who Noodle. Oh, most important question: best boy, Shadow or Noodle?
Who was Noodle from
not
Nimona.
Yeah.
That's a hard question. Shadow, though, I think.
I think Shadow has a bit more personality. Like, Noodle you love because
he's Noodle,
and because she loves him and the relationship she's developed with him. And Shadow just kind of has his own energy.
He does.
Are you guys Shadow?
No, they're more annoying than that. They're not as impressive as Grimm's, and they're not as cute as Noodle.
They're so beautiful.
They're just big stinky boys.
They are big. Oh. Scaring themselves by bumping into shit. Anyway,
here, wait,
continuing.
Wait, rotate yourself.
I'm going.
Here, let me rotate this too, so that way. Oh Lord, help! Oh God!
No, no.
I've shifted the tissue box that's holding our mic. Okay,
Juan's face when he saw it was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "You're not here for that, Juan. You're here for that." But yeah, the Shadow stuff, Shadow becoming old boy who like sleeps a lot.
No. Yes. Where we left off was that Emily has a desiccated foot.
Yes,
in
desiccated
her-
foot.
in her backpack, and she's super stoked. And I'll just spoilers. The foot has to do with a woman, another dryadologist who had gone missing a while back. Her name was Danielle DeGray. We did get some mention of her in the first book, and how she was like a Carmen San Diego.
Yes, that's exact. That is such a perfect
Yes,
description.
she literally is Carmen San Diego.
Where
do wop, do wop. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Anyway, so she is well known, and Emily's really stoked. It's because she thinks that this is going to be a key into one of the hidden nexuses.
Yeah. She thinks Danielle DeGray found the Nexus and she disappeared into Fairy on her last trip. Now, everybody else in academia is like, Danielle DeGray, we don't take that girl seriously.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, she was like too wild for a woman.
And also they're just like, there's no proof for any of her things, like her ideas, her theories. And our girl Emily is like, no. I think she was right on the money, and I think she went lost because she stumbled into Fairy, and that's probably what's happening. And then her less well-known Danielle DeGray's lover, Eberhard, I forgot his first name, but it's fine, don't worry about it, also went missing when he tried to go find her. So she's like, I think Danielle DeGray found a nexus, and Danielle was specifically researching this specific type of fairy, which were called tree fawns, which were found in Ireland, Russia, and the German Alpines. And so she's like, they must be traveling. You can't see it, but there's a dog who just shoved his face. Don't touch that. Don't touch that camera, Katie. We're not. Earlier, Katie tried to strangle the camera like it was a snake she needed to choke out.
Okay, back on.
But yeah, and Danielle DeGray was studying this specific type of fawn who was showing up in all these disparate places randomly, and so she theorized that they were using a nexus to kind of join these points, and because they're specifically part of Wendell's court, the Silver Loopy in Ireland, that's where he's from, she thinks that if they go to Russia or the Alpines, they'll be able to find the nexus, and they decide to go to the Alpines because that's where Danielle DeGray went missing while doing this study. She also has the foot because there's this whole thing in Fairy about parts will try find their whole. So if you have part of a fairy, it will try unite with the rest of the fairy. And so she's like, this will be our GPS. And Wendell is like, disgusting. Why do you have a foot on my desk? And they're like, at first she's not telling him what's happened. And the book picks up the morning after his birthday party.
Yes. And can we just say, so she's very excited to tell him about this foot. She doesn't put it on his desk and show him until a little later. Instead, what she does is she goes and visits him or meets up with him for breakfast. And at breakfast, he has a hangover, or
From
what
hell.
seems like a hangover. And he's not feeling well. He, in fact, so much so that he accidentally charms the tea that they're drinking and makes it into this beautiful. He pours her a cup of tea, and then these lily pads start blooming, and there's almost like shadows of fish beneath it, which is a very beautiful image. So there's something strange going on with him, and she has not yet revealed the foot. And also at this point, she is accidentally bumped into on her way to the cafe to this man, and this man seems frazzled. He's
Covered in ribbons.
Yeah, he looks like, she describes him as looking like a maypole, a human maypole, because he's tall, being thin, late 50s,
Covered
and
in ribbons.
he just has a ton of ribbons, and he says some fairy BS, and then he's just like, "Ha!" and then goes off. So there's that. And then, am I wrong?
No,
and
but I love it.
okay, and then you can and then Emily adjourns. Wendell's gonna go take a nap before his first lectures because he doesn't feel well, and he's just like, yeah, that party last night for my birthday was wild. And so she goes to her office, and then we are introduced to Ariadne. Would you like to give us a description of Ariadne?
This book has two new characters that we're going to get introduced back to frickin' back. Ariadne is Emily's niece. And one of the things we learned in the first book is Emily doesn't have a close relationship with her family. She finds a really, despite the fact that her family she describes as quite normal, not cruel or anything, she just can't relate to them. She struggles finding common ground and has a very distant relationship to them. Like it's not like fond. And her older brother, not a close relationship. There's also like 10-15 years between the two of them. Ariadne is her older brother's daughter, and she has decided to follow in her aunt Emily's footsteps and go into dryadology. And she came to Cambridge, and Emily kind of took her on as an assistant slash student. And she likes her niece in the sense that she's a really good student, but there are habits of her niece she finds a little bit annoying. And this is we get introduced to two new characters, and I'm going to make the argument we should have only gotten one.
Maria and I are both agreed on this point. So there is one character. So we have Ariadne, right? We just got introduced to her. We'll explain as we go through the plot what her purpose is and what she adds to the plot. We also are introduced to Rose. Rose is
Ferris Rose.
Yes, Ferris Rose is the department head of dryadology, and he is honestly, what a rich character. He is this plump, older, rough around the edges guy who wears all his clothes inside out, and it's considered gauche to do that every day, but it's also protection.
He's also covered in tattoos.
Yes.
All the students are like, where do the tattoos end? Because it's on his arms and his legs, and they're like...
Yes, and he has a mullet of gray hair and a bald spot, and he has so many coins sewn into his clothing for protection against the Fae that he jingles while he walks. And, my argument, and I think Maria's on the same page as I am, is that Rose is the pick for me.
Yes.
Rose is the pick for two reasons. One, he's a richer character, especially since Ariadne is basically a very similar character and serves a very similar purpose to the women from the first book.
Yes.
The young ladies from the first book.
Yes.
But also, because of that, Ariadne and Emily's whole relationship and the whole little thesis to their parts of the book is that Ariadne is her family. She doesn't know how to interact with family. She learns that through the power of love that she can connect with people.
Yes.
We already got that.
We had this storyline. The only difference is now she has someone in her actual family that she's connected with. But in the first book, her arc is going from not valuing human interactions outside of the benefit they give to her dryadology studies. And the whole arc she goes in is learning that people and having friends is actually a good thing. She's maintained relationships with people from the first book. She's writing letters. They went to the wedding of the cute little lesbian couple in the first book. This whole thing. So Ariadne feels like we're kind of retreading something we already kind of did.
Whereas Rose is, so we get introduced to the main problem, or not the main problem, one of the big problems at the beginning. Rose comes huffing and puffing into her office in this scene, and he's like, "Where is he?" And she's like, "Okay, he must be talking about Wendell." And she's like, "He will be at his lecture. I'm sure you can find him there." And he's like, "Well, that works. It's because we're going to have to fire the two of you separately." And so we find out that Wendell has done an oopsie on something. It doesn't matter.
Multiple things.
Yeah.
He's forged data, basically. He's faked some discoveries because he's not actually interested in studying dryadology. He's just here because it's the best place to find out if anybody found anything out about doors to his realm. So to be here, he has kind of fudged some stuff, and Rose has put it together and is also claiming that all the stuff that she wrote about in her paper about her experience in Useland was all fake, and she lied about it. There's no traveling whites.
There's no way she could have done all the things she said she did and all this other stuff.
Yes. And she's like, well, fuck you, 2 ways from Tuesday. And they end up, and the core conflict here.
Yes.
So we described the conflict with Ariadne is the whole learning to appreciate people as people and having emotional bonds with connection. Rose is a little different.
Yes. See, the thing is as you might have surmised based off of him wearing his clothes inside out and jingling and such, and the tattoos for protection, he's had some very horrible experiences with the Fae. And so he finds them terrifying, and you need to be on your guard constantly, no matter what. But, of course, Emily is in love with a Fae, and he has proposed to her. And this comes out later on when Ferris Rose learns that, Wendell is Fae and all this other stuff. And so the core problem here is, how do you interact with the Fae? And how do you interact with the Fae as an academic?
Yep.
And what is considered
appropriate?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And not just that, but you also have a bit of old guard, new guard, where his ideas are very stuck in the past. His ideas of methodology, how you should use things, and they have academic differences outside of the, oh my God, he's a fairy, Wilde. You cannot. What are you doing? You trust him too much. So you have that, and then you also have the old guard, new guard stuff. So it's a bit of new ground, and unfortunately, because there's so many things happening in this book, while they do come together and they become friends, and he does kind of, somebody had mentioned, Valerie said, it's true, Emily kind of has the same arc with both of them, because the arc she has with Rose is beginning to appreciate Rose and get past her preconceived notions of him. And they kind of have that for each other, which is a similar thing that kind of happens with Ariadne. But this book has so much stuff going on in it, and we're going to talk about it. It has the too many things problem. And because of that, Rose doesn't get as good of an arc with her as he should. There's never a moment where he's like, wow, Wendell's actually a pretty good guy, or Wendell's crazy, but you're also crazy, so maybe it'll work out for you.
We get a pantomime of that towards the end, but the thing is,
it deals with the academic side of things.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't deal with the
thing is
other side.
This whole book as a sequel, I feel like should have been mostly about not totally about the romance, but it should have taken a passenger seat rather than a back seat in things. It's because we've gotten the preamble to it. We ended on the note of a proposal. That's what we started with in this thing. So I felt like that was the core concept in this book. And so I think it's unfortunate that Rose, as the integer, the pathway through which you can explore that concept academically, is pushed to the side because we have to give more time to Ariadne, as well as some other things that I just felt like, again, too many things.
And that's the thing is, Rose was great. Their interactions were cool, but he just deserved more screen time. And there was a couple of interactions that Ariadne got to have, because at the end, because the majority of the book, Ariadne hangs out with Wendell because her and her aunt don't have a great relationship, and then at the very end they get shoved together to do something, and then they come away and they're like, wow,
we learned about each other.
Yeah, we love.
I wish Rose had gone into fairy.
Yes.
But anyway, we'll get there.
And you could have used Rose in that end scene and had it been a culmination and an understanding, and also the him seeing the half fae and it would have tied up really beautifully.
We're jumping a little
bit. So anyway, here we get introduced to these two characters. Somebody described Ariadne as Scrappy Doo.
Scrappy Doo.
And
she is Scrappy Doo.
She's so funny because she's the smaller, younger Emily, and I made an argument to Katie that the way to make Ariadne work was to make Ariadne very like Wendell, in the sense that she's a flirt. She likes to socialize. She likes to drink. She likes to go out and do stuff. She's still a great academic, but she likes clothes. She's interested in things
fashionable.
She's fashionable and interested in things that Emily doesn't take seriously, so she doesn't take Ariadne seriously as an academic, and she thinks that these things are distractions.
Which would have worked because Ariadne came from a dressmaker, because originally she was doing dressmaking or whatever, or sewing or something. So I feel like her being into fashion would make a lot of sense.
Yes. And you could have had her be like, you're going to have to give up those things if you want to be a serious academic. And then the moral of their relationship in a different book, where we didn't also have Rose to deal with, would have been, no, people can be an academic in different ways, and just because you are a flirty social you have interests out of just dryadology doesn't mean you aren't a good academic and don't produce good work. And because that's a conflict we haven't dealt with.
Yes.
That's not, we need to learn to love people and expand our social circle, which is kind of the whole Ariadne fits. Anyway, so we get introduced to these characters. Rose is like, I'm going to fire you. And then they go to watch Wendell's lecture together. And she's like, please don't say anything dumb, Wendell. And he's doing fine for the most part. He's going through, he's doing stuff. But then, Sacre Bleu, wolves attack. Fey wolves out of nowhere. They've come. They attack. Wendell has to fight them. Bye-bye. And he's like, Emily, give me a pencil. And she throws him a pencil, and it turns into a sword. And he is, throughout the book, he's magicked a lot of her items. He's enchanted them so that in times of need, because he always loses his pencils, but Emily always has a pencil on her. So he fights the wolfies. He kills them. And then, like, they're relaxing. And then Rose is like, the fuck just happened?
And then another attack happens right after that.
Well, he goes, we have to drown it looks like he killed them, but they're going to come back. They don't die unless you drown them. So instead of just throwing them in the fountain outside, Wendell pulls a Wendell. Because he's fake. He turns this lecture hall into a river. Like a river runs through it kind of thing. And it just, whoosh, washes away the wolves. But these particular Fey wolves, they always hunt in 2 packs. The first one and then the vanguard. And so then in comes the second group of wolves, and they have to fight them again. And then they go to the museum, and there's this whole thing in a museum, and there's throwing shit, and it's a chaotic scene. It's a fun scene. It's a
very fun scene.
But chaotic. We don't need to worry about the details.
And
but
during
Emily,
this time,
yes,
Emily also
she grabs a collar that she had previously asked the museum lady if she could have, and the museum lady was like, "This is not a library of objects, ma'am. You can't check out an object. It's a fucking museum." But Emily steals it, and she's like, haha, putting this in my pocket for later. And you're like, oh, I wonder what...
Because she's trying to support Shadow in his elder age, and she likes to have extra protection for him. And this was a collar made by a hobgoblin, and apparently it's, like, supposed to be, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I have to say... This whole little baby subplot that comes up later on, I just wish it didn't exist. I didn't like it at all. But anyway.
Yeah. So they go off and they're like, oh my God, his stepmother is deciding to attack him now. She's been ignoring him for years, partially because the Fae have like a rule where there has to be a way they can be defeated. You know, like fairy very into stories. It's not a story if you just win and there's no one who's gonna come and like try overturn you. So she's left Wendell alive. And also Wendell is a potato and in 10 years has made 0 progress. So stepmother not worried about it. But out of nowhere, stepmother's like, we gotta kill this motherfucker. And our girl Emily is like, Ariadne, you were at the party last night. Anyone weird show up? And Ariadne's like, I don't know, I got pretty drunk.
Yeah.
But
Wendell has obviously been poisoned.
And she's like, oh my God, that's why you're acting weird. That's why you're so sluggish. You've been poisoned. And so now they're like, we need to leave now. And she tells them her whole Fawn, Daniel DeGray theory. And she's like, we need to go on our expedition now. And Rose busts in and was like, I was eavesdropping behind the door.
Which I think is so funny.
Yeah, because like literally this old guy just like, oh, and he's like, I'm going on this adventure with you. And Wendell's like, okay, you make a good cup of coffee. And that's enough for me. And our Emily's like, why would you want to go? And he's like, because I'm a fucking academic and this could be the greatest discovery in Dryad All. Like, fuck you, Emily Wilde. You're the only one who gets to make cool discoveries.
He does, which basically he says.
Yeah, and it's such a great moment because my first thought was, oh, of course, if I was an academic in this field and I heard about this adventure, you bet your ass I'm going. You couldn't stop me. But also because he's going, they get a bit more money. Because he's the head of the department, but they have to go now. Like they need to leave yesterday because they know where they are in Cambridge and they're gonna try escape notice. So they get on a train. While on the train, Wendell takes a nip nap, and during his nip nap, he turns the entire room,
the carriage on
the train that he's in, into like a forest realm. Like there's no wall.
Again, as cute and as endearing as some of these things are, and beautiful and interesting, it's a little OP. He's a little OP. I know he's supposed to be a fairy king, but he can also mess with space and time. And it's just like, I don't like the mixing of the themes a lot. And it just, I don't know. I feel a little bit of sort of a way about it. But anyway.
And they have to like clean it up and take care of it. And they realize that he is kind of spilling magic. And every time he uses his magic, it drains him more. So there's this idea that he needs to use his magic as little as possible. So they have to like physically clean this mess. But anyway, so they go to the Alpines. They get, once again, a cottage that is nicer than the last one. But Wendell has to spruce it up. So again, we're getting that. Like, I completely agree with Katie where we're retreading some ground that we don't need to be retreading as much as I enjoyed them the first time.
Yeah, it's almost like Fawcett was like, this worked the first time, let's do it again.
Yes.
And also, we're also introduced to an idea, although I shouldn't say introduced. It was mentioned in the first book several times, but I would like to mention it now so it doesn't feel like left field. Wendell, back when he was in his kingdom and he was a pretty boy prince, Bishoju style, he
Exactly.
it literally he had a cat and named Augur, and so I just want to leave that there for now.
Just remember that. Another thing that happens on the train, that weird guy with all the ribbons shows up and is
that's
like
right.
has a weird conversation with her and then flits back off into existence. And they're like, wow, he's obviously human, but like, why is he tied to you? I wonder what's going on. Anyway, so they get to the thing, and like the lady who owns their cottage and all of her daughters, who all look the same, are like, oh, make sure you're inside by dark, because there's our fae here. They're lovely. We love our fae, but don't be outside at night. And there's the idea that the fae here, they're a little gruesome. They're a little, and also Wendell is like, they're all part fae. Like, this whole village has some amount of fae blood in them. So the fae in this area be getting down with the humans. Does that impact the plot in any way? Do we meet any of the human fucking fae? No, we don't. Or what fae it is.
It looks like Angry Otter's video froze, so she's gone. Aww. I'm sorry, Otter. I don't know what's going on. If nobody else is experiencing it, it must be on your end.
I'm sorry.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. But anyway, so you learn that they need to be inside at dark, and they do so. They leave some treats out for the fae. But the next morning, there's like, their doorknob's been like hammered, and there's scratches on their door, and they're like, man, the fae must have been, why are they angry with us? We must not have given them the right Treatos. And they start like planning how they're going to start looking for this nexus. And Emily immediately is like, my expedition, here's what I want. And Rose is like, no, we're going to start this way and do this way and this way. And Emily's like, no, old man, I'm doing my shit. So her, Wendell, and Ariadne go off. They find a bunch of fairy doors, because this area is chock-a-block full of fairy doors. They're everywhere. Up in the mountains, just a ton of fairy doors. And when she comes back, there's this nice moment where Rose is like, oh no, you were very thorough. I take back my previous statements. You obviously know what you're doing. It is a different methodology than mine, but equally as effective. So yes, continue forward. I shall take your lead. There's a couple of interactions that happen that are a bit negative. There's this one where these like fox fairies like attack them in the woods.
And rip off Ferris Rose's ear.
Yeah, and you also discover that our girl's coat, Emily's coat, has been magicked by Wendell as well, and it can catch...
Again.
Yeah, it can catch fae in it, and they'll kind of run away from it, and so they use that to kind of save Ferris, but then they have to, like, get Wendell. She has to, like... convince Wendell, who was back. He didn't go with them. It was her, Rose, and Ariadne, because he wasn't feeling well. They go back and they're like, you need to help him. And Wendell at first is like, do we even like this guy? But she asks him 3 times, so it becomes like a fairy wish grant thing. And he doesn't know how to heal. Like, that's not a magic Wendell has. And he has to like sew him up. And so he ends up with these silver scars that look like stitches. And Wendell also sewed his ear on backwards, which is just an excellent little detail. But Wendell begins to realize that she's beginning to become fond of Rose in this, and that he needs to kind of change the way he thinks about it. But again, Wendell is just like very light, and there's a lot of going out looking for doors. There's this one point where they find a door and they're like, oh no, this isn't the right one. There's just an angry winter fae in there.
And let me just say, this entire series of events that happens, and then we're going to probably jump a bit, it's empty space. So when somebody mentioned the nothing happening thing, I can see where they mean that in the sense that we already discussed, that there's so many things happening. It feels like there's no one central theme or no one central thing that is happening, so it feels kind of scattered, so like nothing's happening, but also there is really nothing happening all that much right here. Yeah. It is a big blank space in my memory.
Yeah, and there is things happening, but they're kind of disjointed. So one of the things we learn is in this area, when people go hiking, they tie ribbons as code so that they can leave a map for themselves or people can find them. And so you immediately go, oh, that guy that's been popping up, he's lost in the Fae here. He's Eberhard. He's Daniel DeGray's lover, academic buddy, who came looking for her and got lost. And for some reason, he's being drawn to Emily. And they end up having a conversation where she kind of snaps him out of it. And he talks to her and he's like, yeah, I don't know why I'm being drawn to you. And he's like, sometimes I'm here and you can't see me. It's real weird, but I've been in fairy for a long time and I'm just, I'm a lost boy and I can't see. And like the people of this town, they've seen Daniel DeGray like 3 times, but they see Everhart all the time. And he's always calling for Danny. And you think, oh, there's going to be something like these two, because Daniel DeGray and Eberhard are so central to like the first third of this book. It just comes up a lot. And you think that they're going to have like a significant role in the book. And they really don't. Like they kind of have this thing's going to happen later. And then they're just like, bye star.
We're gonna go live our life now.
And it's just the weirdest thing. But anyway, so they've seen him a couple of times while they're doing their shit. Wendell is still sick. He's having not a good time. There's a point when they're out and he comes out again. And like the Wilde hunt is coming to attack him. Oh no. And they keep having to he has to pull them through the landscape to different points, but he's not doing a very good job. So he keeps taking them where they're not supposed to be. And it's just not doing good. And then he has to fight them and he's not really weak. And then he makes an entire castle in the side of a mountain. And I'm like, what? Like, you just said he's not very powerful and he's struggling to use magic. And the castle's a little wonky, but it's still pretty big and it's a castle. So he's like, go in there. And he has a whole fight where he just like dominates.
Which I think is such a cop-out.
Yes, it is. It's very much a cop-out because like the whole point is it feels like she needed Wendell to be unwell to enable Emily to have a bit more agency in the plot and do more things. But then he's still able to do shit like this. But then after this, he's kind of...
I just wish he just wasn't that powerful. Like, just negate some of his powers and make it so that way she has to finagle some things to give him the opportunity to use what power he does have.
Yeah. That's not how this works. It's gotten a little bit dark. I think I'm going to open the window.
Go ahead.
Give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah, it's...
Christ.
Yeah, I know.
How do you get back here?
Yeah, you don't. You just reach and hope for the best.
Step on
I'm sorry.
this one.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. It's
Is that better?
That's
Does your face look better? Is it too much?
no.
Let me see. Give me a second.
Maybe it's good.
Is it too much? No, I think it's good. I think we'll call it good. Anyway, so yeah, he takes down the Wild Hunts. It's this whole thing, and they're like, "Oh my god, they know
I
we're
also
here."
can reach like right here. So
Oh my
just adjust
god!
it.
Why did you let me go through that whole adventure? Here, yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's perfect.
Okay, continue.
Jesus Christmas. Anyway, so that happens. There's this point where like she goes out when she shouldn't go out and she gets lost in the woods and then she's lost in fairy and she's like, "Oh my god, am I going to be Danielle DeGray? This is very silly." And can you not?
What did he
Sorry,
do?
there okay, someone went
Oh, I didn't even hear it. My yawning.
Yeah. But anyway, and she goes out. She's lost. Oh no! Before this, she makes friends with one of the Fox Fae people because they owe her
Snowbell.
Yes,
not Snowflake.
Yes, not Snowflake. She names him Snowbell, and she wants to go see Poe because she remembers Poe made them those cakes in the first book that kept him warm. Poe is a little brownie in Usland that is her Fierskilder, which is like he's become her family brownie. Like
She is his patron.
yes, and they're friends now, and they're family, which means they do favors for each other. And
he gave her a little corkscrew looking thing as a way to get to him.
yeah,
She
she was
doesn't-
like, "This is the key."
Yeah, he's like, no. He says, "Hey, this is my to my door," and or this is my door to where I live. And she's like, "Okay." And Maria,
Yeah.
are you able to explain this part because I don't have it fresh in my mind, and it's actually one of the best parts in the book, in my opinion.
So she goes to this little Fox Fae, and she was like, "Hey, can you get me to Usland? I need you to take me to this Fae." And the Fox Fae is like, "Yeah, I want to go on an adventure. I've never been on an adventure in my life. Let's do it." So this Fox Fae, and again, previously terrifying. They were a bunch of little tiny Fae that literally ripped up our boy Rose. Okay, now cute, adorable friend, who also is like a psycho. It's like the cute, like
Manic pixie dream girl, but for a fox.
yeah, but also like who wants to be like a biker, like it's just the it's a vibe. But anyway, so he takes her through, and she like walks through the Winterlands, and then they get to Poe's tree, which looks great. Wendell magicked it, so it's like the best tree in the forest.
And
now.
Poe is, married with his lady wife
Yes.
now, and so it's just this little brownie couple that are like weirdly like gruesome in some ways, but also
his wife's real gruesome, and he's less so. But she's basically like, "Can you make me something that'll make Wendell feel better?"
I just sorry, I magicked myself shorter. Continue.
And he's like, "Yeah, I'll go in and I'll make you something like that." And then she finds a letter from her friend. They have that whole interaction. She befriends Snowbell. Snowbell was like wants to wash his feet, but he's afraid of the steam, so she does it for him. So you're like, okay, we're developing a relationship with this other thing. She also tells Poe that Wendell is going to be her fierce Skilder from now on as well. And he's like, "That's great. I hope he never comes here," because like he likes Wendell.
Dude, just ignore him.
Saddest boy in school. But anyway, he likes Wendell from a distance, but is terrified every time he actually appears. So he's like, "Of course, I would love to be his fierce Skilder." Like, and so he goes, he makes cakes. Emily takes it back. She's like, "Wow, what an experience walking through those things." Give it to Wendell. The cakes do make Wendell feel a bit better. This is then when he has the whole, like, I think this was the point where they did the wild hunt part. Anyway, Wendell's out again. They can't make him eat anymore. Like he's kind of passed out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's getting worse and worse and worse. And we're also told about these, like, how there's like an omen of death showing up on his body.
Yeah, there's these
shadows of birds fluttering in his chest, and it has to do with like an omen of death, and how like there's a story and stuff just like that Emily tells you. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't like really go into anything.
It really doesn't.
It feels strange, and it was a critique of both of ours that it even showed up the way it did and that it was used the way it was, but which we'll get back to later. Yeah. But I also want to mention that this door that Poe gave her, it's really cool, and I like the concept of it, and it's that she didn't know how to use it to get to him, and so Snowbell helped her traverse and find the door, like as in like find
just
a tree,
find his tree
in Useland. And then Poe's like, "Yeah, dude, I literally ripped off the physical manifestation of a door to my tree, and that is the knob to my door that I gave you. You just walk forward and it's there.
Yeah.
You're there at my house."
And so whenever he wants to get to her, he just appears on her body because she's wearing the knob. So she's like she is the door. She is the door. It's a great concept. And also, I love my boy Poe, and anytime he shows up, it's a good time. Anyway. There's a lot of things that happen in this book. So, the next major one, she goes out, for some reason, she goes out at night when she's not supposed to. She ends up getting lost in Fairy. And she's like, "Oh, no."
And she witnesses, well, the reason why is because she thinks she sees Danielle DeGray.
Oh, yeah.
And, hi, Nemo, you just missed the first half of the book, that's all. But welcome, hi. But yes, she thinks she sees Danielle DeGray, which is the first sighting she's seen of her. And she thinks she sees her, it's because of her hair color, which is this green. It's because she was cursed by Fairy and she has green hair. And so she runs off to go follow her and ends up seeing her jump off a cliff. And she's like,
as an old lady.
Yes. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" And she looks down and she's like, "Is there a nexus down there?" Like, again, a nexus is just a door to another place. And so she was like, "Oh, well, now I'm stuck." And so, but it's not much of an issue because Wendell finds her 5 seconds later, and then they set up a tent and they do the elegant in and out.
Yes, they do the elegant in and out, and it is as abrupt as that. Like he was like, "Maybe we should go back to the thing," but I don't have enough energy to take us there. And she was like, "No, let's pitch a tent," if you know what I mean. He does pick up. She says something where she's trying to say that, but she says something where she's trying to imply, "I'd like to be alone with you," and he's like, because it's Emily, and
she just says, "Okay, now you take off your clothes."
Yeah, so once they get in there, and she's like, he's obviously not picking up what I meant, so she's like, "Okay," she just like kisses him, like just like smush face kisses him, and then is like, and then they start making out, and then she's like, "You can take off your clothes now," and he just laughs because like The moments I love with Wendell a lot is when he's commenting on how fucking wild Emily is, where he'll be
No
like,
pun intended.
he'll be like, these fucking crazy lady academics. And there's these moments where she does something and you're like, yeah, that's kind of wild. But anyway, and so they do, and you're like, unfortunately, they've spent no time together.
So
this
it
book.
really feels unearned. It feels like there was no build up. There was no, like, don't get me wrong. It's a cute scene. I like it. It's well done. But it's like, again, the romance has taken a backseat in this novel where I felt like it should have been a passenger.
Yes, especially if we were going to get this scene, you know, a well done, elegant in and out, if you will. We're going to make it happen. If Valerie
Yeah, I know. I
made
saw
the
that.
note. We're gonna make elegant in and out happen. It's gonna happen. But anyway, I love how that's not at all how you used it when you mentioned it, but it works up so beautifully. But anyway, if we're gonna have this scene, I should be excited. I should feel a sense of build up. But this entire time, I wasn't like, I see why Emily's more in love with him now, or why she's come to her decisions. Aw, now it's that one crying. Why she's come to her decisions about it, or like, she doesn't even look at him and is like, damn, I'd climb that like a tree. Like, we're getting her journal. Like, there's never even a moment where she's like, Wendell looked mighty fine. Like, nothing. And listen, we hate fever touch.
If anything,
We
yes.
hate
Yes.
when characters pine.
Looked into his blown iris or blown.
Blown?
His
Pupils blown.
You know, like,
Didn't do much.
no, but that's been described. She looked into his blown pupils and could tell that his arousal had gotten to her.
We don't.
Or to
We
him.
don't like that.
No.
But just any tension, like
well-
maybe he touched her neck in a way, and she was like,
Okay, so look. I have a good piece of evidence that compounds this issue. At the beginning of the novel, which I liked this, by the way, I liked it a lot. I felt like it fit Emily's character. She specifically says to you, the reader, so I've been thinking about the proposal, but the thing is I've never wanted to get married because when I think of marriage, I think of social obligations. I think of requirements. I think of things that take me away from what I truly love, which is Dryadology academia. And she's like, so I'm going to turn him down, but I find it very sweet that he, like, I also don't want to let him down.
yeah, I don't want to hurt him.
Yes. And so the last we've really heard of anything, she's going to let him down.
And then all of a sudden she's like, burn, and it just comes like,
I'll let the dog-
it was a very
Continue.
tense scene. Can you get out?
Yes.
It was a very tense scene that just happened. She's lost in fairy. You're like, oh my God. Is she going to Daniel DeGray? Is he going to have to come in after her? Nope. He finds her pretty quickly. And then they're just like, what are we doing? Like, I want some amount of build-up. Again, I mentioned this before. Lindbergh made the point, a lady wants to be wooed. And in this case, it's me. I'm the lady. I want to be wooed. And I think anyone who reads this would want to be wooed a little bit. And it felt like, I wish it didn't happen here. I wish it happened later in a book where we could have had more scenes of them together, where we could have had that build-up. Like, I'm not talking for anything crazy. Just like, where they look at each other, there's a sense of tension. Like, can we get an ounce of romantic tension or sexual tension? Just a skosh? Like, just a little teaspoon in our cozy tea book. And in this case, it's one thing I will say about this book, and I forgot to mention it at the beginning, the tone of this book is much more consistent. It's just fairy tale adventure out the gate. It doesn't have as much of a coziness as the first book did. And I find that is a strength, but unfortunately we have the too many things problem that the last book didn't have, and it muddies the water. We don't get to really develop, and the romance is one of those things. Anyway, they do the next morning. They go back to the tent,
Not
to the
tent,
cottage.
the cottage.
They unpitch the tent. Anyway.
Anyway, so they go back to the cottage, and what happens, because I actually have, I just have an empty spot in my brain.
So they go back. On their way out, they find Eberhard.
That's right.
Bopping around, and he just like pulls him out of Fairy. Like, he literally...
Wendell, he being Wendell.
Wendell just grabs him and pulls him out. Like, you think that they're gonna have to lead him out, that they're gonna have to go through weird paths, go through time. Maybe Wendell can pull him out of time, but can't physically pull him out of the hold of Fairy, and he has to lead them, and they have to go through... No, he literally just grabs them, like so, and then he just pulls them, and when they're now next to him, they're fine. He's out of Fairy.
It's a little OP. It's a little OP.
And it's just such a tension sapper because now we know how they're going to save Danielle de Grey. And it's just... And it just is the dumb... Like, this has been the buildup. This is what you think the climax of this book is going to be, is rescuing Danielle de Grey and Eberhard and then getting to the Nexus. Like, that's what you think this book is going to be up to this point. And then you're like, okay, no, if we're dealing with it that quickly, that can't be what's happening.
We've also been sleeping on a couple of details, which is fine. It's whatever. But, like, for example, that desiccated foot from her hoof or whatever from the faun, she's been lumping around and it's been doing weird things here and there, but hasn't really helped her that much. And she keeps it under her bed with like a circle of salt around it so that way it won't go, but slowly but surely it's making its way down the stairs in this cottage. And anyway, I feel like we should just and also the fauns are a big focal point. It's because
conceptually,
yeah. As far as like they're brought up as like this really
menacing
force in the area.
They're the ones, the fauns, those tree fauns that are the things bumping around the Nexus that gave her this idea. They are the reason you can't go out at night in this area. They fuck shit up. And so they're menacing, and you're like, ooh, when's the interaction with the fauns gonna be?
Maria and I both kind of wish that Snowball's fox fae creatures were replaced by the fauns.
Yeah.
And that they were more of a point here, especially considering the geographical location and how that seems to be the big creature of the space. But I feel like shall we jump to Danielle de Grey reveal?
So I was going to just go through, because before that we have to do the Grimm, like the whole thing that happens.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to highlight some comments where that I highlight like the subjective versus objective things in this book. Oh, dang it. Lindbergh says...
Try again.
Oh my god, now it's going to take it away. Okay. We've reached the point where I'm so in love with this setting and the characters it required conscious thought for me to analyze it critically. And Valerie says, listen, you guys are right, but I was just having so much fun, because it is like, I loved the sex scene itself, which again is the elegance in and out. It fades to black, nothing in detail. Loved the scene itself, super cute. It's got pieces of their character. It shows how they interact. You also learn, you get a little more detail about why he loves her.
Fawcett is a very competent writer.
Yes.
This is a very fun book, regardless of the things that we're saying as far as critique goes.
But 'tis our job. Yes. Onward we must. But anyway, so they bring Eberhard back. Everybody's like, oh my god, you found Eberhard. And like that night, Eberhard's like, oh, I found there's a place by this one church where she went missing. Because everybody in the town...
Oh my god, give me that toy. Don't let him have it.
Was it a toy or...
It's a toy. It's a toy.
Here you go. It's a squeaky toy.
It is.
But anyway, he was like, everyone in the village thinks Danielle de Grey fell off a cliff, but she's actually an excellent climber. So Eberhard was like, no, that's not where she went missing. She went missing by this one church. So they go over to this church, and there's a fairy door over there, and they're looking into it, but it's getting dark, and they need to go back. And one of the villagers is like, this old lady is like, yo, motherfuckers, it's getting dark. You need to go back. Our girl, Emily, knew that a confrontation was probably going to happen, and it's getting dark. So she had put that collar that she stole from that museum on our boy Shadow, and it makes him big, a little beefy, and also it's supposed to make him faster and stronger. And so because he's an old boy after 1 year of human time, she wanted to give him a little edge. But the fawns end up popping out. The fawns have their own dogs. Shit's going wild. Shadow is getting super aggressive. It's almost like the collar gave him Fae T, like he's on steroids. And now he's like super like, I gotta protect Emily, and I'm gonna fight everything. And he's putting himself in danger in ways that she doesn't want him to do. And then a bunch of the villagers come with lights to scare away the fawns and save them, because they were idiots and they stayed out past dark because Emily made him.
Can you stop? No, ignore him or it'll continue.
But anyway, and so the villagers are like, we'll go help them. We'll scare away. And they're like, hello, our Fae, go away, we're here. And the Fae start going back. But one of the villagers, the wife, or no, the husband of the lady whose cottage they're in, comes up next to Emily to be like, come on now, let's go home. And our boy Shadow is so hyped up on this collar that's giving him like steroid juice that he attacks the man. Grabs him by the middle because he's giant at this point and just shakes him. And they're like, oh my god. Emily's like, they're gonna kick us out. They're gonna come at us with pitchforks. She's freaking out. Rose actually has one of the best scenes with him where he's like, you need to calm down. Yes, it happened. Mistakes happen. We deal with this. You need to stop feeling bad for yourself and like punishing yourself because we have to fix what's happening. So they're in the cottage. They know in the morning people are going to come for them, and there's banging on the door. Bang, bang, bang. So much banging. And there's a point earlier where she was talking to Eberhard, and he mentioned that Danny gave him a necklace that was made from a horn from one of the fawns she had taken that got used for her research. It happens to be the same fawn that she has the foot for rocking about under her bed. And our girl Emily is like, oh my god, that's why he was drawn to me, because I had the fawn foot. He had a piece of the horn. And then she was like, did Danielle happen to... And he was like, oh yeah, she carried a horn with her. And so there's a banging on the door and scratching. This whole time their doors had these sharp gouges in it. And they're like... Emily's like, oh my god, we have to open the door. And you're like, oh my god, it's Daniel DeFucking Gray.
And it is.
It is. They open it. It's Daniel DeGray. She's been drawn to them because of the foot. And then now Eberhardt's there. So his thing that has been drawing her, because the two of them have been drawing each other to each other, which is why they've stayed in this one area. Like, they've stayed in this realm area, but lost within the fairy places within it. And so then again, Danielle DeGray appears. Do we have to go in, rescue her, grand adventure? Nope.
No, Wendell just takes her out.
Takes her hand, brings her in. And this is the point where these two characters become so tangential to the rest of the plot. It is laughable for how much screen time they had. Also, that scene with the fawns, that's the most we get out of them. Despite them being built up as this big thing and like them being the dark thing in the night that's creepy. That's it. That was the sum total of the scene of an interaction with them. But now we have them. They know people are going to come and kick them out. Wendell isn't doing good. And he mentions to Emily that, you know, his cat was really great and she could do a lot of cool things. And Emily's like, oh my God, what if that is his way of trying to tell me that his cat can save him?
Which is so weird.
It is such a weird assumption to make. I went,
what?
Like, how did you? But like, somehow Emily knew. And she's like, I have to find the Nexus, go into his realm,
and get his cat.
Bring his cat back to save his life. And it's my turn. I wanted to be the hero, so I'm going into fairy. And Rose is like, you can't go by yourself. And Ariadne's like, I'll go with you. And she's like, no, Ariadne, you can't come with me. It's very dangerous. And Ariadne's like, no, Aunt, I'm a dryadologist. I'm going. And
she ends up bribing her way onto going because she's like, you really can't do much to keep me from going because of all these reasons. And she's like, dang it. And the thing is number one, if we are going to have Ariadne in the plot, this is the time where Emily should finally be like, you know what? I do need help. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I mean, arguable. It's because then you could also say, well, maybe this adventure is the adventure where she realizes she is capable. So maybe they do have that interaction where she's against it. Either way. But also my, preference is that Rose goes on this trip because he's terrified of fairy. He's already had his ear ripped off, but he decides that he's going to go anyway because he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Emily.
If he stagnates, if he lets his fear now overwhelm him, he's never going to be an academic. Like, this is the end of him as a adventure, like a in the field academic. He's not ready to put down the and it's such a good moment for him to like, and also be like, fuck it, let's save your fairy boyfriend. You know, like the culmination of, because this entire time he's like, I had a friend who was in love with a fairy and she killed him. Like, he is dead. Like this, and like he ended up, she didn't actually kill him, but she tied him to a tree and he kind of starved. And by the time people found him, he died. So whole thing and like valid concern.
Yes.
And also seeing her go into fairy and handle things the way she does, he could have been like, wow, Emily, you're in a league of your own. Like,
yes.
There's something weird about you. And fuck it. If anyone can handle Wendell, Fairy King, it's you.
Yeah.
And you know, how great would it be to have an academic connection to a fairy realm, you know?
Yeah. So, anyway, and as Val says, Ariadne is a cat person. That's why she has to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rose stays behind with Wendell, and they go off into Fairy.
Yeah, they get Daniel DeGray, like they kind of bully Daniel DeGray.
Daniel
into-
DeGray is annoying.
Yeah.
I know somebody said that they liked their interaction, which I will agree. It's actually a really nicely like nuanced interaction between two people who are, as Valerie or whoever Lindbergh said, or somebody else, that they are almost like kindred souls in the way that they handle Faye. But Danielle DeGray has become like this like salty old woman because of her being stuck in Fairy for a really long time, understandably.
But also there's this idea that like she's always been this way, like she's always just been like a bit abrasive as a human. It's just anyway, so Daniel DeGray takes them, just shows them where the Nexus is, which is that door they found earlier that
we have not mentioned. We've not mentioned
No,
it,
I
really.
said Wendell found a door that they with a Fae Winter Fae spirit who chased him out, and they were just like, guess that's where the Winter Fae lives. But anyway, they go in and they realize on the inside of the door, so they break into this fairy house. It's a literal fairy lives here. They break into his house, and on the inside of the door, there's a bunch of doorknobs, and depending on which one,
a la Howl's Moving Castle.
A la Howl's Moving Castle, and that's what makes this a Nexus versus a normal fairy door. A normal fairy door leads you one place. This can lead you multiple different locations, and
one of the doorknobs is a doorknob that has clear blue water with sunlight coming through. And she even messes around for a minute, a la Howl's Moving Castle, and looks through some of the doors and sees like Greece and like the beach, a pebbly
rocky
beach. Yeah, and some other stuff. And then all of a sudden, which I liked this in particular, and I almost wanted a longer scene from this, but especially considering the Fae that sleeps there is like the gatekeeper almost of this. Like it's their house. It just so happens.
It's kind of funny because when during winter, when this Fae is out and about and not at home, that's when all of the fawns and stuff are traveling back and forth because his house is empty. And so like there's this idea that this Fae limits people being able to go in and out because it's his house, and he's like, why the fuck are
you in my
here?
house? But I really like this one part, and it's when Emily is in the house and she looks at the little fireplace or something out on a mantle, and she sees a whole bunch of little figurines made out of human frostbitten fingers, and she thinks to herself, once she hears the banging, the noise of the Fae moving around, she thinks to herself, okay, Ariadne, we need to go. And you get this little throwaway comment, which is well done, but I wish there was a lingering in the setting itself, of how if you meet a Fae and they play with basically human body parts, that's not a Fae you want to mess with.
Yeah,
and
we don't befriend those.
Yeah, and the way it's like mentioned is very offhanded but very chilling, and it's so well done. And I kind of wished that we had gotten like a little bit more of a pause in that house. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So they go through, they get to Wendell's realms. She picks which one she thinks is Wendell's realm. They get through, they get lost for a bit, but then Snowbell is like,
whatever.
You guys are so dumb. You are such dumb humans, but I wanted to go on another adventure. That first one wasn't exciting, so I thought this one would be better. And it is. We're here in a different place, and there's a lot of weird stuff, and people are watching you. And basically, like, she asks Snowbell to help her get through because they're going the wrong way. Like, they're going absolutely the wrong way to get to where they need to go. So he leads them, starts taking them the correct way, but they're being followed by the Queen's guardians. So the Queen is Wendell's stepmother, and they have these weird spider owl bird guardian things that are like watching but not doing anything. There's multiple points where like riders are going past and like they've known that they're here and they're being followed, and she's like, I just need to get in and out. And Ariadne's like, what's our plan? And she's like, there's only one person I know who can get in and out of a fairy court by themselves, me, motherfuckers. And it's just this like, it's funny because it's silly, but it's also just this great, like, I love seeing a female character who is so self-assured in her knowledge. And now I do wish, and you saw this a bit with the collar, but it didn't, like, the book didn't, like, delve into this, where sometimes her self-confidence is a little misplaced and can cause problems, and she needs to be a bit more cautious. And that's why I thought Rose and her would be a perfect complement, because they would complement. He would bring some cautiousness, she would bring some bravado, and together the two of them would make it out alive. But no, it's just me. But anyway, so
Great.
Yeah, thank you. So, oh yeah, a quest. That's what Snowbell. He's like,
Snowbell.
what a great quest, because like shit's going weird. But anyway, they get to the castle. She has to like kind of sneak in, and she's pretending to be just like an enchanted human, like just saying things. And she's like, I'm just a dragonologist, and everybody's like, God, these academics that are studying Fae. And eventually a human finds her, because one of the things they learn about this realm is the queen collects humans that become part of her court for specific purposes. And she meets one of these humans, and the human is like, you're not fucking glamored, like you're not enchanted,
Bro, stop trying to try.
like you're like, what is up? And she's like, I'm here, I need to get to the old king's apartments. And he's like, and so then this guy is married to the queen's brother, and introduces, like, brings our girl Emily to the queen's brother, and he's like, okay, we'll help you. And they basically take her to his Wendell's old apartments, and she's looking through. Sorry.
Watch for the tissue box, Maria.
I'm sorry. She's looking through his apartments, and she's like, yeah, I get this. This is Wendell's place, and she's looking for the cat, and she's like, okay. And then eventually she finds the cat, and the cat's like, we need to go through this door. And
The
like,
cat doesn't talk. The cat's just like, meow.
Scratch. But it's also like a fae creature, so it's not like actually a cat. But anyway, it's like, let's go this way. And she's like, no,
Let's not listen to the fae cat.
Don't listen to the fae cat. Fae, I hear people over on the other side of that door, and that we're going to get. And she was like, we need to go this way. And she ends up stumbling into a setting of a laid table, and there sits a woman in a beautiful gown, obviously queen of the fae, but aghast. She's half human. She's a half human, half fae lady. This is Wendell's stepmama, and she has clawed her way to power with the power of human manipulation.
Yes.
And using like fae powers plus.
Excuse you. Human endurance. And wait, what's the word I'm looking for? Perseverance.
But also, they specifically say, fae are so used to just being powerful, they don't need to actively manipulate. There's just an inherent
which is a nice concept.
But as a human, you can manipulate people, and that's how she's kind of gained her position. But she's got some fae she's got fae magic, because she can, like, her words have power and stuff. And her and Emily have a conversation, and eventually, like, it's a whole conversation, and she basically confirms what you have kind of suspected, which is Emily is the reason she's now trying to kill Wendell, because everybody knows a smart human is more to fear than just a, like, airheaded fae prince king who is just like, my coat must be perfectly tailored.
Yes.
And she's like, no, you're the threat. She's like, I know the stories. I pay attention to the stories. And I know you are a threat. And you are smart. And you are capable. And you are everything Wendell needs to get this throne. So, yeah, it's got to go. And she was like, too bad you didn't have a weapon. And she's like, Emily's like, oh, but I did have a weapon. And she's very glamored. The scene, she's having a hard time remembering what happened while she was in Fae. So this is written, because one of the things we forgot to mention, this book is still written as if it's a journal. And so she's writing the scene, and she's trying to write it down before she forgets what happens, and trying to make it coherent. And she was like, no, I did have a weapon. I had a fawn horn. And the queen's like, oh, that's a fearsome weapon indeed. And she's like, yeah, but I distilled the poison out of the horn, and I put it in your wine. And the queen's like, Jacques, like a shocked Pikachu face.
Yeah, no, for real, though. And then she, like,
and starts... and the guards are like, oh, God damn it, I keep hitting this thing. The guards are like, oh no, and she, like, our girl, she's got the cat in the bag.
Legit cat in the bag.
Yeah.
Emily legit, first of all, shoved the cat in her backpack. First of all, so many reasons why that's a dumb decision with a cat. But anyway, and then she just jumps out the window.
And ends up, and then she lets the cat go, because she's like, I guess I should have trusted the cat, because if I listened to the cat, I probably wouldn't have ended up in that situation. So she lets the cat go. The cat starts taking her, and she's like, no, my friends are that way. Why are you going this way? But it turns out this cat is like a void crosser, and you'll walk through a path, and then it'll take you to a different location. And she's like, oh man, we should have gone through that door. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, so she gets back to Ariadne and Snowbell's like, because, like, shit's going down now.
The guards, the spider owl guard things.
Oh, also, I have to mention, Shadow was very, very
contrite
post attacking Eber, the guy who lived in the like
Village.
the village, and he doesn't come on this adventure, which he's very butthurt about. Like the scene of him having to go back with Rose, and he's like, Mom, it's so
It's
sad.
really sad.
It's so sad. But anyway, and the cat is like now having to tackle all of these guardians that are like,
Which it's doing
attacking.
a very great job.
Excellent, but there's a really big old one, and they're having a hard time, and they're like, oh god, we gotta get back to the Nexus. So Snowbell and the cat are like hopping them through to the Nexus. They get through, they think everything is fine, but then like the story, like the recap stops, and then Wendell takes over. He's writing in her journal, and he's like, I'll pick up where you left off, Em. Also, I told you to sleep. Why the fuck did I come back into the room and find you like a mad woman writing in your fucking journal? Nobody can even read your handwriting, man. And basically he picks up, they come through the door, and he like takes them back, starts hearing the story, trying to get them to bed. And at first they think nothing has followed them through. They're good to go. Only later, the Guardians do an attack, and Wendell has to go out and fight them. And he opens a portal into, it's called the Void, the Veil. And it is a realm of old magic. It is not a realm of fairy. It is a separate place that fairies potentially came from. It's just, it's primordial. And he opens it, and the Guardians are like, no, we don't like it in here. And he's like, well, you need to stop attacking or I'm going to leave you in here. And they're like, okay, we won't do that no more. And then they just kind of like hang out. And he ends up having a conversation with Emily. And he's like, wow, I did not think you were going to go into fairy and deal with my stepmother. That was not, I just was expecting you to get my cat and bring it back. And the cat like does the thing, like
the cat chases the birds
out
from
of
his
chest.
body and kills the birds, and that solves his poison problem, which is visually very beautiful,
but conceptually,
just I don't understand.
I hate it. I hated this because like it was like the poison turned into the birds, and then the cat got the birds out of his body. And
does that mean only a cat could have done that? Like,
yeah, that was the implication, but it had to be like a fake cat. Anyway, the whole thing. But by the end, also when he's passed out before she goes off on her adventure, she whispers into his ear, "I said yes. I say yes. I'll marry you." And so he, in his thing, he was like, "I have to go after my fiance," and he was like, "Yeah, I did hear you. I got you, girl." And it's just a fun. I love the Wendell chapters because he has such a specific way of
aplomb.
Yeah, and but anyway, we go back to Emily, and basically, we get they deal with all the stuff, and there's like a party happening where the villagers are all coming together.
And she learns once, she's like, I don't deserve this after the thing that happened with Shadow, and then everybody has to reassure her and be like, no, you did good. Good job,
yeah.
Emily.
And also, we're friends, and like this is because it's
Nakama.
Yeah,
the Nakama have come together again.
Because it's got the vibe of the kind of thing that happened at the end of the first one, but that one was earned because she actually developed relationships with people in the village. And here, like, Ariadne made friends with some people, so the fact that everybody's being really nice to them makes no fucking sense. And her and Rose are doing good. They go back to Cambridge, and then like there's a time skip. And basically or there's also a throwaway line where she's like, actually, Wendell, I'd like to talk to you about the lesser fae, the small fae, because I think you underestimate them a lot, and we can use them. And like it drops there, and then all of a sudden we're in Greece in a mansion. It's been 8 months.
They're getting breakfast cooked for them by the local the in-house cook.
Yeah, in the mansion, because Wendell's like, no more cottages for me, baby. And they're spending one night here because the portal in the Alpines got closed. That fairy was so tired of people coming in and out of his
such
house
a funny concept
that he just closed the door. Like you cannot access the
Nexus anymore.
The Nexus from there. And he closes
but
it. So now,
she remembers, like I mentioned before, that one of the little howl moments that happens when she opens the doors was to Greece, and so she remembers the location based off of
she
geolocated it.
She looked at the beach and she looked at the rocks and the islands in the distance, and then they just looked at maps of Greece. Again, how did they know it was Greece? It could have been Cyprus. It could have been. There's a lot of islands in the Mediterranean. It could have been an island.
It could have been Rhodes.
It could have. There's so many, but she's like, Greece. And she's like, we looked at maps together, and based on my memory and my geographic imprint of this, we were able to find this.
She would be a great geoguesser.
Yes. Anyway, so they find it, they book the mansion, and they're going to open the door. And what they have done in the past 8 months while at Cambridge is they've amassed some lesser small fae to come in as their army. They've got the
Snowball
the fox
Snowbell.
Yeah, the Snowbell fox people. They've got a family of trolls. No,
Poe knew them.
yeah, Poe knew them. They've got the Guardians who have now decided, after you opened the veil,
You are the one true king.
you're the one true king. Even though before this they were following the queen, so I don't because the idea was they follow the
true person who
like,
should
they-
be in power.
Well, no, because they say it's just whoever's in the chair, that's who they follow. They're not tied
Yeah.
to a bloodline, so I don't know why. I thought perhaps if they made a line like, obviously my my stepmother's dead, and that's why they've come to me because I'm
Yeah,
that,
but
like,
does
object.
it doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. It specifically says she could be alive, she could be dying, she could be dead. We don't know. We'll see what we find when we get there. But they're going in. They've amassed this army. Also, the fawns are now on their team as well. He banished them back into that was something that happened at the end of before the time jump. He banished the fawns back to Ireland, and that way the people in the Alpines can like have bonfires at night now. They don't have to worry about the fawns
And they're creepy dogs.
and the creepy dogs killing them. So now they can actually walk around at night and have bonfires. So good job. But anyway, and they're open, like the book ends as they open the door to go in to do this thing. And here's my problem. Having the showdown with the queen, his stepmother, be a footnote of an interaction in this book, fucking wild. I thought it would have made sense to just end with her having to go into Fairy, like them finding something, or she just gets the cat and then they have to deal with his aunt, like his stepmother. Maybe she passes her and doesn't realize that's the queen, and then she's going to discover it later. But the fact that we literally...
I have a hot take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Bear with me, everyone. This would completely change the whole story, and it would, I don't even know how it would fix itself, and there would have to be other things going on, and it would be like a whole reworking. But there's something I really don't like overall, and it's bothered me a little bit. I don't know, I don't think it bothered me in the last book, but it bothered me a lot in this book because of the focus on it. And it's that, at this point, I can't really picture Wendell and Emily living in the fairy world.
No.
I cannot picture them living there normally, happily, without something going wrong, without there being political drama that changes the nature of their relationship. They have a status quo as academics, and they have a favorite cafe, they have their own rooms.
Their entire relationship is built on a sense of human day-to-day drudgery.
Yes. And so my problem is I don't like that Wendell wants to be king again. I don't like that Wendell wants to...
Thank you. I would much prefer if he was like, we got to find someone else. There's always,
oh my God, that would be great.
I would love if he ends up as king and he goes, I don't want this. We have to figure, there is somewhere, because it's fairy, there's going to be a secret, like I have a secret brother or a secret sister.
Or the brother-in-law, or not brother-in-law, but the queen's brother or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
there's a way to get out of it, and like that's the goal. So like if you're going to end a book, but like just to be like, we're going into fairy, and also like, because she's like, I want to be part of this realm and part of this court.
I just don't like that because I don't see
like it.
that.
Also, ma'am, because she's like, I can come back on occasion and do some
you can't have your
academic
cake
work.
and eat it too like that.
No, like, and also I just like them as like, I like him being like, the fairy, like I miss Faye and I want to go back and visit my realm, but I don't want all that drama.
Yeah,
That's
no,
too much for me.
I would like it. It doesn't really fit with his current character right now.
It also just doesn't fit with Emily.
No, not at all. And the thing is like,
do you know how many nice dresses she's gonna have to wear? Do you know what they're gonna have to do to her hair? Contain it. That's what they're gonna have to do.
but also like more importantly, I like the idea of them going off on their funded adventures and presenting their findings.
Yep.
Like that's
what I thought this series was going to be. Just a bunch of their...
Yeah, I cannot see them together in the end in this location. So I don't even want them to go pursue it. So it feels really weird for me to follow this plot line. It's because I'm like, I don't even want you there. That's not even a driving force for me to want for you.
That's nothing that I wanted out of, like, at no point was I was like, wow, I was just like, I wonder how Wendell's gonna get out of being king. Like,
yeah.
How's he gonna get out of this situation? Or like, maybe he was gonna talk to his stepmother and they were gonna go, like, communication route, and be like, I don't wanna be a king, can you just...
That would make more sense to me too, because he's like, she did love me.
Yeah, because
Like-
and she does, like, and there's this vibe you get that she does love Wendell, and that's why she's ignored him for so much. And so, like, and the thing is, maybe in the third book, that is what she does. Like, and she is like, but like, I want it built up. I want at some point Wendell to be like, I guess I have to be king, but I don't want to be, like, just to set it up a little bit that, like, that's a, and it's just, there's so many things where this...
I also wish it was not revealed that he was a king of fairy in the first book.
Yes.
I wish that came in the
the
end
second.
of this book or something like that, and that's why
Or halfway.
or whatever. But the point is that the assassins are sent. That becomes a problem, and then she's like, "Why are there assassins being sent after you? What have you done?" And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm like, I was the king."
Yeah.
Like, that would be a fun reveal. Instead, we're front loaded with all the cool. Again, he's OP. If you don't know what OP means at this point, it's
Overpowered.
overpowered. He's got too much of the cool stuff. He needs less of the cool stuff, so that way the journey is more satisfying.
Yes. And maybe once he becomes king, he gets a bunch more power, and he doesn't like the way it changes him. He becomes different. The power, the crown itself changes because you have to play into the stories of the Fae. He can't be Wendell Bamblebee and be king. He can't be who he is and be king. The throne, and he realizes, oh, my stepmother wanted this thing and could do it by who she was, and that is not what I want. I need to give this crown to someone else. Maybe maybe his stepmother's in prison and he gives it to her and then renounces his claim to the throne. Or like something.
Or yeah, maybe, okay, so like real quick, another, like you were just saying, maybe she was on the throne, maybe she was ignoring him, and maybe the assassins were sent because she was dethroned and the brother took control and is like, I want no competitors, and so wants to kill him. And so his job is to bring which would fit thematically somewhat with the previous book. It's because what happened in the previous book was there was a queen, and then they dethroned her with bringing the king back of winter, and then they ended up having her kind of be on their team so that way she could help dethrone that king again to bring back the status quo a little bit. It
doesn't work out that way.
It doesn't.
The king stays there, but he ends up being less of a butt a little bit. Yeah, it's wild. And it's such a weird way to end this. And I found myself, like, at the end of the first book, I was like, I can't wait to see what happens. And at the end of this book, I was like, I don't want to, like, that's not, and the thing is, I'm going to, because I really, I hope Fawcett is like, don't worry, guys.
I got you in the long run.
Don't, like, I know what you're here for. You just want adventures. Don't worry, we're going to Africa. There's going to be African things, or like, we're going to Asia. Let's meet some, like, the Asia, and we get to do all these cool studies and there's dryadologists in Asia. And
yeah, I kind of wish the books were, like, the books are a nice length. I kind of wish we just had them going to different continents, and then through that, as each plot of the book, we get the subplot of him being the king or something like that, if you wanted to keep that as like a major arcing, like dramatic, like turn for things where things become much more heavier and problematic and whatever. And then we finally get towards the end of like 6 to 8 books. Again, I like this series.
I would like
so
that.
6 to 8 books, and then when we get to book like 4, we start getting introduced to this problem more heavily, and then finally the last 2 to 3 books are heavily
It would also just give time for like the development with their characters, because one of the things that works really well in the first book, but you begin to feel it here, is Wendell fell in love with Emily off screen. He was in love with her the minute we started book 1, but the other problem is, because Emily only writes down what she thinks is academically valid, we don't actually get to see Emily
fall in love with him.
Really fall in love with him. You, the reader, fall in love with Wendell.
Which is a testament to how great these characters are.
Yes.
So it's just a shame we don't get to enjoy that aspect of it.
And if this book had, like, if they were doing a little bit more of what Katie just described, it would give a little bit more time for them to develop, like each other,
It would also fit, like, by the way, the jumping to different continents, for it's the date is 1910 is the year that this happens. So that's like, I mean, not that I know history super well, but if I'm not mistaken, that's a perfect time for a British encyclopedist to be exploring fairy. Not yet, though. Not yet, right? Not yet. That's
10th.
1920, right?
Is it the 20
When is
Roaring
World War-
20s is after. It's
Oh.
World War One in the 10s.
Oh,
Then
shoot.
we have the Roaring 20s because the war
Well,
is
we-
over and
we don't
everything's
have to-
great.
we don't
and
have
then we have the Depression. No, KD. Now the thing is, does this world have World War II?
Yeah, well,
Or World War One? Does it happen? We don't know.
Nazi fairies. We don't
Well,
need
no,
that.
that's World War II.
Yeah, I know,
Not
but
World War One.
well, Nazis they were bubbling, they were boiling,
No.
toiling, and troubling.
It literally,
Yeah.
what happens after World War One finishes and how much they economically crippled Germany starts
That's
the
true.
breeding ground that allowed
I
Hitler
guess
to
I don't
rise
remember
to
enough
power.
of my history.
I do.
So anyway, okay, maybe we're not in that world. We're in a fairy world, so it doesn't matter. So let's just get rid of World War One and Two.
Yeah.
If it's 1910, they don't even have airplanes yet.
They don't, which I'm
That's what
fine-
Sheldon Florence said.
Yeah, I'm happy for trekking across the world. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do with this, and I'm really hoping Fawcett is just like, nah, Wendell's not a king. Emily's not gonna be a fairy queen. What are you talking about? So I hope that's gonna be what happens. But we'll see. Overall, fun book. Problems, too many things. That like the so many little adventures and little things like the Eberhard and Daniel DeGray. What a letdown. The entire interaction with the Queen being a footnote in this other like experience. Weird choice. We need
The
to get a
cat
cat for the
Solving the poisoning problem just felt strange.
it's just it felt real strange, and also because it wasn't like Emily was like, oh my god, he mentioned he had a cat, and I found a story where a cat is able to save
No,
them.
it's this like
He literally is like babbling, and he's like, my cat's really good. He's so powerful.
he implanted like a memory time jump thing. It doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
point is it feels very messy is what the problem is.
Yes.
But anyway, in general, highly recommend the book.
Yes. And the series.
It's still really good. It just those were the things that I felt like took away from it for me.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, then we did it in 2 hours. We thought this was going to be an hour and a half because it's a short book, but it wasn't. Partially because of Katie's weird camera.
Yeah.
If you want to know what that means, you have to join the Patreon so you get to access to the.
It's so riveting. So riveting.
It was funny. It was one of the funniest things if Will's smart, he's going to include it as the cold open. But I don't know.
Just Juan sitting there
And
being
then
like, and then me being like, did you fix it? And then it's like, you guys are like, oh no, there's no problem. And I'm like, oh really? And I put my face in, and it's just like glitch.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, we love you, our parasocial darlings. Bye.
Goodbye. Live well, live strong.
Prosper.
Oh. Indeed. Farewell. Goodbye. How do I get off here?
You have to hit end stream.
I know how to do this.
Yeah, you do. Wait. You have to hit end stream again. You can.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
And then we have to wait that awkward amount of seconds.